There is a specific kind of person most people spend their entire lives trying to manage. They do not announce themselves as dangerous. They do not arrive with obvious warning signs. They enter quietly, through charm, through need, through the slow accumulation of small concessions they ask of you until one day you look up and realize you have given away more than you intended and received less than you deserved. Toxic people are not stupid. In fact, the most effective ones are extraordinarily perceptive. They read people quickly and accurately. They identify who will resist them and who will not. They locate the person who needs approval, who fears conflict, who gives benefit of the doubt past the point of evidence, and they move toward that person with the precision of a system that has been refined through years of practice. But here is what they also do. They identify who will cost them too much, and they avoid that person entirely. Not because that person is aggressive, not because that person is difficult or hostile or armed with confrontational energy, because that person is unreadable, unmanipulable, grounded in a way that makes the usual tools useless. Today we are going through 8 specific behaviors, silent behaviors requiring no announcement, no performance, no confrontation, that make toxic people recognize you as someone they cannot afford to engage with. Machiavelli understood this completely. He writes about the prince who makes himself difficult to manipulate, not through displays of force, but through the cultivation of specific qualities that remove the leverage manipulators depend on. These are those qualities, applied to your daily life, starting now. Behavior 1. You observe before you engage. The single greatest gift you can give a toxic person is your immediate, unfiltered reaction. When something happens, when they say something provocative, do something calculated, create a situation designed to produce a specific response from you, and you give them that response instantly, you have told them everything they need to know. You have confirmed which buttons work. You have shown them the mechanism. You have handed them the operating manual for managing you. Machiavelli writes about the importance of never acting from the first impulse. He calls it the discipline of the second thought, the practice of allowing the initial reaction to pass through you without becoming action, and then choosing your response from a position of observation rather than reflex. The toxic person's entire strategy depends on your reflex, on the predictability of your emotional responses to specific stimuli, on the fact that if they push this button, you will do this thing. When you observe before you engage, when you receive what they have done or said and simply watch without immediately responding, without showing the effect, something happens that toxic people find deeply unsettling. They cannot calibrate. They do not know if their move landed. They do not know if the button works. They do not know what you are thinking or feeling or planning because you have not shown them. And the toxic person who cannot read you cannot manage you. In practice, this looks simple. Someone says something designed to provoke. You receive it. You look at them calmly. You say nothing for a beat longer than feels comfortable. You might nod slightly, the nod of genuine reception, not agreement. And then you respond, if you respond at all, from a place that has nothing to do with the reaction they were trying to produce. They pushed. Nothing predictable happened. They will push again, differently, looking for the button. And if you hold the practice, they will eventually conclude that the buttons they have do not work on you, and they will move to someone who still has buttons. Behavior 2. You never explain yourself to people who do not deserve the explanation. Over-explanation is one of the primary mechanisms through which toxic people maintain control. Here's how it works. They challenge something you did, your decision, your choice, your boundary, your no. You, wanting to be reasonable and understood, explain yourself. You give your reasons. You walk them through your thinking, and they pick it apart. They find the weakest point in your reasoning. They reframe your explanation in a way that makes you sound selfish or unreasonable or confused. They ask follow-up questions that push you deeper into justification. And within minutes, you are defending a decision you had every right to make without any defense at all. The explanation was the trap. Machiavelli is precise on this point. He writes that a prince who explains his decisions to everyone who questions them has implicitly accepted that his decisions require the approval of everyone who questions them. He has transferred authority over his own choices to whoever challenges him loudly enough. The toxic person knows this. They ask why not because they want to understand, but because why is an invitation to enter a territory they have pre-mapped for your defeat. The silent behavior is this. You stop explaining yourself to people who have not earned the explanation, not to everyone. To the people in your life who have demonstrated through pattern rather than isolated incident that your explanations are ammunition rather than information. When they challenge your decision, you do not produce a defense. You say, "This is the decision I have made." Or you say nothing at all, no reasons, no justifications, no invitation to debate. A decision that stands without explanation is a wall they cannot find a door in. They can knock, they can question, they can push. The wall does not respond, and eventually they learn that knocking on this particular wall produces nothing, and they look for walls that open when knocked on. Behavior 3. You make them wait. Urgency is a weapon. The toxic person creates urgency deliberately. They need an answer now. The situation is critical. There is no time to think. You must decide immediately or something bad will happen. The urgency is almost always manufactured, and its purpose is to compress the space between stimulus and response until there is no room for the thing they fear most in you. Your judgment, a decision made under artificial time pressure, without the ability to think clearly, to consult your own values, to notice what is actually happening. That decision is almost never as good as the decision you would have made with adequate time. And the toxic person knows this better than you do. Machiavelli writes about pace as a form of power, specifically about the prince who refuses to be rushed into positions that suit someone else's timeline. He observes that the person who controls the pace of any exchange controls the pressure in that exchange, and pressure determines the quality of decisions. The silent behavior is the deliberate introduction of time. When urgency is created, you slow down. Not dramatically, not as a performance of resistance. Simply, you slow down. You say, "I will think about this and come back to you." You say, "I need a day with this before I decide." You say nothing and simply do not respond until you are ready. The toxic person hates this with a specific intensity because the manufactured urgency is the mechanism. It is not incidental to their strategy. It is central to it. Remove the urgency and the strategy collapses. Every time you make them wait, calmly, without drama, as if waiting is simply what happens before you are ready to engage, you are demonstrating that their timeline has no authority over your process. That demonstration accumulates. Over multiple interactions, the message becomes clear. This person cannot be rushed into positions, and the toxic person begins to calculate the cost of continuing to try. Behavior 4. You remember everything and react to nothing. This is one of the most powerful combinations in the entire framework. Most people do the opposite. They react to everything in the moment and remember nothing over time. Each incident gets full emotional response, full energy, full engagement. And then it is processed, forgiven, filed away, and the next incident is treated as if it happened in isolation. The toxic person depends on this. They depend on your short memory and your immediate reactivity. They depend on the fact that you respond fully to each individual incident, but never accumulate the incidents into a pattern that changes your overall assessment and behavior. The silent behavior reverses this entirely. You react to nothing visibly, and you remember everything. When something happens, when they say something manipulative, when they push a boundary, when they create a situation designed to benefit them at your expense, you do not give them the reaction. You receive the information, file it accurately, and continue. But you do not forget, you are building a picture, not with emotion, with data. Each incident is a data point. Each pattern becomes a conclusion. Each conclusion informs a quiet, permanent adjustment in how you operate around this person. They see none of this. They see someone who did not react, who seems unbothered, who has apparently moved on. What they cannot see is that the person they thought they knew, the predictable, forgiving, always starting fresh version of you, no longer exists, has been quietly replaced through accumulated data with a version that knows exactly what they are and operates accordingly. Machiavelli calls this the intelligence of the patient prince. He writes about the value of accumulating information about those around you over time, never acting on each piece as it arrives, but building the complete picture before the complete response. The toxic person who does not see your response assumes their behavior had no consequence. It had every consequence. It just happened quietly, internally, and permanently, on a timeline they had no access to. Behavior 5. Your validation comes from nowhere they can reach. This is the behavior that makes toxic people most uncomfortable because it removes the primary mechanism of their control. Toxic people operate by controlling the supply of approval, belonging, and validation. They give it and withdraw it strategically. They make you feel seen and valued in moments that serve them, and invisible and inadequate in moments designed to create dependency. The oscillation between the two, the unpredictable movement between warmth and coldness, produces in the receiving person a state of chronic low-level anxiety that makes them highly manageable. It only works if you need the approval they are supplying. The moment your validation comes from a source they cannot access or control, your own clear values, your established relationships elsewhere, your record of your own competence, your spiritual or philosophical foundation, the mechanism fails. They give warmth. You receive it pleasantly but are not moved by it in the way they expected. They withdraw it. You notice but are not destabilized. The oscillation produces nothing. Machiavelli writes that the prince who requires external approval for his sense of position will always be vulnerable to whoever controls that approval. His entire framework of self-command rests on the prince having a foundation that external conditions cannot shake. In practice, this behavior develops slowly. It is the accumulation of genuine self-knowledge, knowing what you value, knowing what you have built, knowing what you are capable of independently of what anyone tells you about yourself. You cannot perform this. It cannot be faked. Toxic people are too perceptive for the performance to hold. But when it is real, when you have genuinely done the work of building an interior life that does not depend on their assessment, they feel the absence of leverage immediately. And they know without being able to articulate exactly why that this person is expensive to engage with. Because what they are selling, you are not buying. Behavior 6. You exit conversations that are not serving you. One of the most underestimated forms of power in any interpersonal dynamic is the power to leave. Toxic people are extraordinarily skilled at keeping people in conversations, interactions, and situations past the point where staying serves those people. They use guilt, unresolved tension, the need for the last word, the manufactured sense that leaving now means losing, all of it designed to keep you in a space they control for longer than is good for you. And most people stay because leaving feels rude, because there is unresolved tension, and leaving with unresolved tension feels like failure, because they have been trained to believe that the conversation must reach a conclusion before they can go. The silent behavior is the clean exit. No drama, no announcement, no performance of leaving. You simply stop being available for the conversation. Machiavelli writes about the prince's relationship to his own attention. Specifically, that attention is a resource, and like all resources, it must be allocated strategically rather than spent wherever someone else decides to direct it. The prince who allows others to determine how long he stays in a situation has surrendered one of his most fundamental forms of power. In practice, this looks like ending phone calls when they stop being productive, stepping away from conversations that have become circular, not responding to messages that are designed to provoke a response rather than to communicate something real. Leaving rooms physically when possible, when the energy of the room is being directed against your well-being. Without explanation where explanation is not owed. Without apology where apology is not warranted. Without the need to resolve every tension before the exit. The toxic person who cannot keep you in their arena has significantly reduced power over you because their entire methodology depends on extended engagement. They need time with you. They need the accumulated pressure of sustained interaction to work their effects. A person who exits cleanly and early robs them of the raw material their strategy requires. And after enough clean exits, they begin to understand that extended engagement with you is not reliably available. Behavior 7. Your consistency is impervious to their inconsistency. The toxic person is almost always strategically inconsistent. They are warm when they want something. They are cold when they want to create anxiety. They are generous in public and withholding in private. They agree with you completely in one conversation and contradict you completely in the next. They have a different version of every story depending on who they are telling it to and what they need that audience to believe. The inconsistency is not accidental. It is the environment in which their strategies grow. Unpredictability keeps people off balance. Off-balance people are easier to manage. The silent behavior that neutralizes this is radical personal consistency. You are the same person in every conversation. You hold the same positions regardless of who is in the room. You behave the same way whether you are observed or not. You do not change your account of events based on audience. You do not adjust your assessment of a person based on what that person does for you in the current moment. Your consistency is not performed. It is structural. It is who you actually are rather than a mask you put on. This is devastating to the toxic person for a specific reason. Their inconsistency only works in an environment of general inconsistency. When everyone around them is slightly adjustable, slightly malleable, willing to hear a different version of events if the version serves them, the toxic person's ability to reshape narratives, to gaslight, to rewrite history goes largely unchallenged. The person who is consistently consistent is a fixed point in a landscape the toxic person is trying to make fluid. You are the one person who remembers what was said, what was agreed, what actually happened, and who will say so calmly and without drama when the revision appears. You are not aggressive about it. You do not make a confrontation of it. You simply state the accurate version, once, clearly, and do not negotiate it. The toxic person who cannot revise reality around you cannot control the narrative around you, and controlling the narrative is central to their power. Your consistency removes that power at its root. Behavior 8. You have a life they cannot penetrate. The final and most comprehensive silent behavior is this. You have built a life, relationships, purposes, practices, sources of meaning that exist entirely outside the toxic person's reach. People, commitments, work that matters, a private interior life, relationships they have never met and cannot influence, purposes that predate them and will outlast them. The toxic person's power over you is directly proportional to how much of your life they can see, access, and affect. A person who has given a toxic presence access to their entire life, who has no relationships outside the toxic relationship, no purposes independent of it, no sources of meaning or validation beyond it, is almost completely controllable because every lever is available. Machiavelli writes about this in terms of the prince's independence, specifically the danger of the prince who has no support, no alliances, no sources of strength beyond the relationship or arrangement that is currently threatening him. He writes that the wise prince builds his foundations before the storm, not during it, because foundations built under pressure are always weaker than foundations built in calm. Your life outside the toxic person's reach is your foundation. It does not have to be enormous. It does not require a vast social network or a perfectly organized existence. It requires depth in a few key areas. 1 or 2 relationships of genuine loyalty and mutual respect. People who know you accurately and value you honestly and would notice if you disappeared. A practice or purpose that belongs entirely to you. Work, craft, study, creation, service that generates meaning independent of any other person's assessment. A physical practice, something the body does regularly that reminds the nervous system of its own competence and resilience. A private interior life, thoughts, values, beliefs, experiences that you do not share with the toxic person and that they therefore cannot distort. When this foundation exists, the toxic person senses it without being able to name it. They sense that you have resources they cannot account for, that your stability does not originate in the relationship with them, that if they withdrew everything they offer, you would grieve but not break. And a person who would grieve but not break is not a person they can afford to threaten, because the threat does not work. And a threat that does not work is a debt. It costs the person who made it more than it costs the person it was made against. The toxic person is a practitioner of cost-benefit analysis, even if they would never describe themselves that way. They invest in people who offer sufficient return relative to the difficulty of maintaining the relationship. When you are too difficult, not aggressive, not hostile, simply too grounded, too consistent, too self-sufficient, too unreadable to make the investment worthwhile, they move on to someone whose life has more gaps in it, more accessible levers, more places where the usual tools work. These 8 behaviors are not a performance. They are not a mask you put on around difficult people and remove when they are gone. They are qualities developed slowly, maintained consistently, expressed in every area of your life, that gradually make you the kind of person toxic people do not choose to engage with. Because toxic people are selectors. They read people and make calculations. They move toward the people whose profile matches what their strategy requires and away from the people whose profile does not. Your job is not to fight them. Your job is not to expose them or confront them or try to change them. Your job is to make your profile unworkable for their strategy. Do that completely enough and the selection works in your favor before the first word is spoken. They look at you and they see something they have learned through experience with others like you costs more than it returns. And they look elsewhere. Machiavelli's greatest insight was not about how to win fights. It was about how to make the fight unnecessary by becoming someone for whom the fight does not make strategic sense to start. That is what these 8 behaviors build, not armor, a profile, a way of being in the world that the people who operate through exploitation and manipulation simply do not know what to do with and do not want to find out. One last thing. None of this requires you to become cold, suspicious, or closed to the world. The irony of everything we have discussed today is that the person who embodies these 8 behaviors most fully is not the hardest person in the room. They are often the warmest, the most genuinely present, the most capable of real connection. Because they are not spending their energy managing manipulation. They are not anxious about approval. They are not depleted by overgiving. They are not distracted by the noise that toxic people generate in the lives of the people they have found leverage over. They are free, and that freedom, that full, grounded, unmanipulable presence, is both what toxic people fear and what the people worth knowing are drawn to. Build these behaviors. Build them slowly. Build them into who you are rather than what you perform. And watch the quality of every room you walk into change. Not because the room changed, because you did. The next video covers exactly how to identify a toxic person within the first 3 interactions, before they have had the chance to establish the patterns that make them difficult to remove. The early signals are specific, consistent, and almost always visible if you know what you are looking for. Share this with someone who needs it. I will see you in the next one.